An audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. And as you just heard, this meeting is being recorded. Okay. So as usual, we'll start with the public forum. Do we have any members of the public here who wish to speak? I'm not hearing or seeing anyone. The next item is approval of minutes. I'd like to hold off on that until Mary Johnson, who's the secretary for this group, is here and can address any comments that we may have. Unless anyone objects to doing that. Okay. So next item I have is a recap of the town meeting. I'll say I just listened to the presentation on Westborough TV. Looked like an excellent presentation, an awful lot of information and a pretty palatable thing, and he kept it in 4 minutes, got all the key points. So Kate, Bob, thank you very much.
3 minutes.
Was it 3? Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks for presenting all of that. Do you all or anyone else have any feedback from town meeting? Go ahead, Walter.
Well, first, kudos to Kate and Bob for, like you said, a great presentation in little time, emphasizing the value of the library and giving a good update on the project. I think it was an excellent job. The thing I got out of town meeting mostly was related to building, but the community center barely squeaked by on a majority vote to get their design work, and they have their homework to do to get through a 2/3 vote at the annual town meeting, and of course we'll be trying to do the same thing at the same time. And I do sense there is some interest in us carefully examining whether we can use that space as a cost savings item as our temporary solution. And that because clearly they're not building out the whole thing to start. But that overall, the golf building got trounced like by a 2/3 majority. And so I think we have to keep doing what we're doing, which is have a good plan. I think our split up plan and being very clear has been good. And also encouraging people who are supportive to speak in favor at town meeting of the article. I think some of the other buildings didn't have that sort of basis of support. And I think we've done that in the past. So anyway, that's my impression.
I think one of the goals that Kate and I were trying to do is separate ourselves as much as possible from the other two projects, showing that we're well along in the design development. Final construction estimate will be ready. We're ready to go to bid by January, bids out, and then bids received. So I think we wanted to show that we're moving right along and ready, shovel ready, so to speak, by town meeting once it's approved. And from what I gathered, it sounded like perhaps the community center is probably a year behind us. From what I read in the paper a couple of weeks ago, it sounded like they were actually going to be maybe coming back to March town meeting with that design development and bids ready. But I think we're about a year apart. So I hopefully that we've separated the projects enough. But I think too is after our presentation, I think the other two, the audience was skeptical in the other two. And I think that it probably showed the library building committee did their homework, did their due diligence, and that our option was the saner of all three options. So hopefully we communicated that in the right manner.
Knock on wood. It's going to be an interesting meeting in March for sure. Okay. Anything else on town meeting?
I was unable to attend, but I thought you summarized it very well, Walter and Bob. It went over very well.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought the presentation, Bob and Ben's, Kate's presentation was positively received. I'd make a stronger statement about the temporary library space than Walter did. I think there'll be a lot of pressure on us to use that space or find a really good reason not to, and to save that money. So I know we haven't, I don't think we've done any real heavy due diligence on this, but there's a heavy push toward that direction.
I'll have something to report later on.
I've been hearing sort of echoes of that push just since I've gotten back, and we have an item for temporary location search coming up, and I think we definitely want to explore that very carefully.
I just had a question, and I'm not sure if I should bring it up now or for temporary space, but during the meeting, I know certain town administrators or people in town government were just automatically assuming that, yes, we're in negotiations with the library on using the BSA space. I didn't hear of any ongoing. Am I mistaken? Is there ongoing discussions about that? I must have missed a meeting if we talked about it, because the last I heard is that we just moved past that it would be, we were vacating one space because we were going to be in temporary construction. So why move into another space that will be having built out done? And I thought perhaps we didn't want to go on the second floor because there's only one elevator and 72 stairs. That would be kind of awkward. I just assumed that's why we're going with the RFP through Schwab, and that we had already moved past even thinking about moving there. But maybe I'm wrong, or maybe somebody can fill me in on what the ongoing discusls are.
I'll bring it up later.
Let's hold that off until we get to the temporary library discussion.
Al can't make this meeting. He's on duty. So.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on town meeting? Next thing is overall project status update. I guess I'll ask LPA and Vertex for just sort of an overview, and if you see any, are we on schedule, are we on your cost, and any red or yellow flags?
Well, we have the 75, I let Christina and LPA speak as well, but both estimators are in receipt of the 75% CD documents. And we still have scheduled for our reconciliation on I believe it's the 15th of November, in which we will get in the room with both estimators and walk through the scope to come with a more defined number that we will put together into the total project budget. So no concrete update as of right now. And I'll let Mike or Christina, if they had anything to add about any feedback that has been gotten from their estimator.
No further feedback from our estimator yet. He's only had it for a few days, as Brian had mentioned, but the expectation is, the 15th we will sit together and do the reconciliation. But in the meantime, we are still plugging ahead with the contract documents. That pedal does not let off here through the end of the project. We need to keep going full steam ahead.
Great. Anything else? Anything that's particularly worrying you other than, like town meeting votes and little stuff like that?
Not as of yet. Like I said, we just need to keep going. I don't think there's any major decisions there. There's one topic that we'll bring up here a little bit later, but there's nothing immediately that's of concern.
Okay, excellent. So next item on the agenda is the discussion of I've called it a book return in the Parkman Street entrance. Kate, can you give us a clear, I don't know if the committee has considered that as a whole yet. I know there have been discussions.
Yeah, so I'll talk to this a little bit. So one of the things that kind of coming in with no kind of history to this is that I'm looking at every single thing kind of new, and I don't know what's been considered and what hasn't been considered. And one of the times that we had met, there was some questions about the Parkman Street entrance and some different carpeting we were using and what signage we would like. And so Lynn and I went down and take a look and spend some time in that area, because it really was an area where we really weren't doing anything initially, I think, in this repair project. And as we looked at it, the biggest issue that continues to come up, actually since my first day on the job, and I'm sure prior to that for many years, is that book return. So, you know, are you seeing this? So this is the, I can't see it, but maybe you can see it. Is it a photo of the book return?
It's a photo of the book return with a pile of
Okay.
books off to the left on the floor.
Okay. So this is what our book return currently looks like. And usually it's a big Rubbermaid tub that gets in the way of it being ADA compliant. So if you've ever walked there and seen the big black tub, that's usually what we put there because it's big enough to hold all those books. This is what it looks like every single week when staff open on Sunday. So this is something that happens occasionally overnight, every weekend. And anytime that we close for a day for a holiday, I have to schedule staff to come in and empty it. So I actually have to pay people to come in and empty it. Usually it's Lynn. So this is one of those things where it's a real problem, where it's located is a problem. It's right in the walkway. And I don't have a solution for it, but I do think it's something that if this committee has not considered a solution for this, I do think the optics of shutting down for a year, fixing everything, and then coming back to a Rubbermaid tub in the entrance is not great. It's not great optics, right? So I'm wondering if we can come up with some sort of solution for this. As it's an issue now, it will continue to be an issue in the future, especially usually when libraries reopen, they get busier. People want to come and see what's going on. There's excitement about the library, so I anticipate this issue to actually get incrementally worse once we reopen. So one of the solutions that we had just in standing in the space, looking around at it, and having worked in several libraries prior to this, the only book drops that I've seen work as interior book drops are ones that drop into a closet. So, and what libraries will do in situations where there's a long weekend or something like that is they just remove the bin and let the books drop into that closet. And then they do a social media post afterwards showing the mess, saying, look how busy we are. And it's beautiful and it's gorgeous. So we were looking at that space, and the question that LPAA had asked us to consider was the cement kind of patio that's out there, and what kind of signage we wanted, what could we envision that space like, what were we going to do with that space. And so it dawned on us that in the Parkman Street entrance, when you walk in, there's all of that kind of dead space where we put the Friends donation bins. And it seemed to us that could potentially work as an enclosed place for a book drop if we were to move the book drop to the other side. So we kind of thought maybe this would work, threw out the idea to everybody and had a small meeting about it. So we just wanted to open it up to this group to see if exploring a solution to this is something we wanted to look at, and just kind of open it up to what the whole group thought about this particular issue.
I'm going to ask what I think is the first question is to ask LPA, I guess mostly LPA, but also Vertex. Is this something, I don't know how much of a design change something would be, but is this something that we can do without messing up the schedule? And I can take no for an answer on this one because it's pretty darn late in the process. But
I can take that one, Ed.
Go ahead.
We talked about it, and well, I think the solution that Kate and Lynn came up with of creating a closet there is a good solution, and it would solve the problem of the book drop. I think the issue we have is that we don't have the resources, either in time or money or schedule to execute that solution and still have it part of this bid package.
Okay, that's kind of what I was expecting and afraid of. let me just see if there's any other comments or questions, any idea, and do you have any ideas for ways that would fit within the scope?
This
Well,
is something that Eric and I went over, and sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead, Brian.
There's just a question regarding security here and trying to eliminate the need for an exterior drop. Is there any situation where the door X01 could be open at all times and 102 be the secure door to the building, therefore allowing people to go into the vestibule and have a drop where the porch is now and having a book drop in that new wall that we have there, therefore eliminating any of the exterior retaining wall moving that would need to happen.
I mean, I can speak to that one, just because I would be the one dealing with that, is that I feel like there would be an extreme security issue there. At night, having that be open, would be a real problem. We would definitely have people camping out in that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I could see how that might that would be an issue. I was actually having the same thought. Having, yeah.
Are there drop-offs that are standalone, that is basically a metal bin that's outside, and you could potentially even make it drive-by and you could just slide it in like a mailbox? And then somebody has to go outside to empty it and bring the books back in, but make it separate from the building?
That's what we had in the past, and the problems that we had with that, which is why we moved back to having it internal, is that the book bins become full over a weekend and patrons end up leaving them outside and materials get ruined. So that's why we are looking to have it be inside and enclosed. Also, those receptacles are about between 10 and 15,000 usually would be what the cost would be for that. And we were just trying to figure out, like, is that cost something that I don't know what the additional cost would be to make that Parkman Street solution work, I guess.
If I remember right, those bins were basically green mailboxes.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, if you put something considerably bigger in, like, you know, I'm thinking of a small room with a slot in the door. I don't know if there's room for it, but would that work better?
I don't know what.
Well, you know, you've probably seen like the pods things for disposal. I imagine you could, or a small shed or something, you know, it would be, I don't know if it would even fit aesthetically. Okay, let's,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
I'm assuming that the changes on the drawing here in red would be more than $15,000. So the numbers didn't scare me, but as an aesthetic, as the mechanics of it work and stuff, so the capacity would have to be appropriate so that it exceeds the peak load.
this is something I think we would for sure have done if we had thought of it a year ago, but I don't know if it's feasible to do at this point.
Yeah, my concern is, it doesn't have to be this. I just want us to come up with a solution, because the problem is if we don't put it in with this project,
It'll be hard
I'm
to get
gonna
money
have
for
to,
anything else, yeah.
and I can't put it on the capital plan for the year after, because then the public's gonna say, well, we just gave you $14 million. Why are you asking for more? Why wasn't this taken care of? And so I'm just trying to figure out, I totally understand it's not great timing, and I do want to come up with a solution for this, because do think the public will be wondering what we spent our money on if I have to put a tub out for that book drop. So we were just trying to come up with something that might work and make that entrance make sense. Because right now we just have all that dead space that really doesn't serve much of a purpose. And that's kind of our main entrance for families and kids and anybody going downstairs. So a way to also kind of secondarily beautify in some small way that area as well. But again, I'm open to any suggestions that we have that we can make happen so that I don't have to go back a year after opening and ask for more money for a project like this.
Bill and Amy, I think we should explore a little bit further Brian's idea. And I understand, Kate, what you're saying, but to me, that's the shortest route to a solution for you to get it accomplished in this project. So maybe explore a little bit more with Brian. I don't mind being a part of it, but let's take a step in that direction. That I don't see anything else right now.
Yeah, that would be relatively low cost. It occurs to me that if we reach out to the public safety, they could actually ask somebody to have somebody on patrol and come by and look in every few hours during the course of the night, and that would probably deter any squatting.
Michael,
I think that
I'm sorry. I just stick on Brian's idea. We do have a card reader and electronic hardware on that door, so it could be programmed just to be unlocked during certain hours and locked during the hours that would be of concern for people to get in there. So if you want to just have it unlocked during daylight hours, that's a possibility. Or just have it locked between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. You know, there's a lot of options there for when it could be programmed to be open and available.
So would it be possible to make those changes in their time scale, which I guess would be a new interior wall there and reprogramming the locks? So I guess a new lock for the internal door.
The complexity with building the new internal wall is that it will have effect on HVAC, sprinklers, and some finishes. But yeah, it's more the impact to the HVAC and sprinklers and fire alarm. That would probably be the bigger concern for us.
I'd say I don't think it has to be like a full wall, because we, put a ventilation grill at the bottom and leave like a 2-foot transom at the top or something. I don't know, but Kate, you can shoot down that idea if you want.
I am so happy to hear other solutions. I would just very strongly push against this particular idea. Just having worked in libraries for so long, having worked with the public, I don't want to come in the morning and find somebody overdosed in our lobby. I just don't want to deal with it. I feel like that's kind of the reality of what we'll be looking at. And I know it sounds extreme probably to this group, but I've been there and I've lived it. And I know we think that we're Westborough and these issues don't exist, but they do, and we see it every day. So I would rather deal with the issues that come with exterior book drops, which is our books get ruined, than the latter. So I feel like there's a solution somewhere in here. And I just was kind of hoping that this group, because you guys have been so supportive in figuring out how this library is going to get to our next level, that we can come up with something. So, I mean, if it ends up being 2 extra large size exterior book drops and we just kind of deal with whatever happens, and down the line, I look towards this solution and we just kind of have to deal with that for a few years, I think that that's something that we will handle. I think that our hope was just we could come up with something that would last long term, because we are looking at being really good stewards to our taxpayers and using their money for the best solution a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So I'm happy as long as we come up with something that's going to work.
Okay, we had a quick question for you when we were talking about this internally. Tony came up with the idea of having something kind of built in that would be a larger receiving vessel as opposed to a mobile bin or piece of furniture that could have some sort of protection on it that could accommodate more of the drop off without them spilling out onto the floor. But you would have to, in that case, I think, eliminate some of the seating that you have out there. Is that something you would consider? Because that wouldn't require as much coordination in terms of MEP systems or anything like that. It's more of like a millwork solution.
Yeah, so I think the only issue with that is when we do have situations where we have overflow, there's nowhere for it to go. And so it's going to back up onto the street rather than I'd rather back up onto our floor than our street.
Okay.
But yeah, I thought about that too, because that would be a more elegant solution, right?
It would be, I think.
Yeah.
And perhaps if there's a way to quantify the amount of like cubic feet that you feel like you need, we can take a look and see if it's possible with millwork. But it's a little bit hard to quantify that.
Christine, are you talking about moving that heating element that's at the top of the ramp?
Because
that was the only other spot that I thought that it could go, but then I thought that would create more problems because
I think, and Tony, if you want to share your screen, feel free. Can you see this right here? We were thinking about taking, this space up into the point where we are impeding on the access way down to the ramp to be able to create something that can accommodate more books and have like some sort of security aspect to it so that we can obviously have people not grab them on their way by because they are returned books. So that was something that we had considered as an option that was low impact in terms of consultant coordination. And Tony had come up with that.
Is this currently the only location for book drop at the current site?
yes.
Exterior, yes.
And if there was a exterior standalone at a different location for book drop, do you think that would reduce the level of overflow you'd have at the interior one if one was on, say, a different part of the site, maybe one of the standalones that you had alluded to, so that maybe there's two locations and not a single location where we're getting significant overflow. That might make the staff have more work to do. So I'm not sure if that makes sense.
I'm not worried about the staff having more work to do. It's I think that because our patrons are creatures of habit, they're always going to probably choose this one. And
Sure.
So usually what libraries will do is their interior book drops lock when the library's closed, leaving only the exterior as the option. And so that's usually what people do to prevent said issue, because everyone kind of has this problem with these interior book drops.
I mean, I think you're going to be closed for a year, so the creature of habit thing is less of a persuasive argument.
Could you just use the space outside the windows where the existing book drop is to make a bigger book drop? Yeah, so there, maybe you replace one of the windows or something, so you'd have quite a bit more volume to dump books into. And I think we're going back to Christina's cubic feet question there.
Yeah, Christina, Lynn, did we answer the question about that heating element that's by that wall? I can't remember.
I don't think we had an answer. I'm going to throw out my uneducated guess, which is that if you took that out, you wouldn't have any heat in that thing, and that would be a problem.
I don't think we would propose to take away the heating element, but as you can see here now, there's some seating there. That's what I was kind of saying would be eliminated. The heating element would remain. I think we would have to work within the footprint between the book drop to the heating element itself, which we you can kind of
I've
see
seen
here.
people sit there occasionally. I actually sat there once to get signatures for when I was running for trustee.
Mhm.
It's not exceedingly comfortable. So, but I don't, so, and occasionally somebody will go down there to make a phone call or,
No, it's usually where the kids wait for their parents.
yeah.
It's warm.
Have we explored all the various internal book receiving mechanisms? Maybe there's something new and different out there. I don't know.
No, thank you, Tony. I'm guessing that's Tony.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the technology around book drops really hasn't changed much in terms of the receptacles that exist. They're usually on wheels or spring loaded, or some of them are covered, but they're really just bins. The only thing that's changed is most people, when they do a renovation, will move to an automated materials handler, which we are absolutely not going to do. Absolutely not going to do. Yeah, I see how tight that space is. So we put this little tiny one here, and it just, I don't know. I don't know
So
the solution here.
what if you, I'm going back to my idea, and if it's terrible, shoot it down and I'll stop. But what if we actually took out the lower pane of one of those windows and put a box that would be a larger box, and you could actually extend it out onto the sidewalk a foot or two, and maybe get a lot of volume there. Design a cart or find a cart that would roll into the space. I don't know if that's making sense to anybody. It's kind
Ed,
of,
what we were actually thinking with the enlarged bin that Christina had traced out, you still have it under the existing book drop, but the bottom of the floor of the bin, if you will, could slope somewhat towards the heating unit. So you have a narrow but long bin, maybe twice the volume of what you see here. And when you put a book in the drop, it hits the floor and slides to the far end, so that they start to accrue sort of where that chair is. And so that was sort of our thinking as to one of the more time and cost-friendly ways to get a little bit more volume within the interior shell of the building.
so it'd be the same depth but longer going off to the left of what we're seeing.
Right.
And designed so that books would slide down from the book drop into a ramp on
Essentially,
the right, and
yeah.
then slide off to the left. Okay.
Christina, question. The heating element that we see on the left in the current picture, can that go to a ceiling type blower? Just reroute the plumbing?
I think at this point, that would be a larger change than we'd be able to accommodate with our schedule. So right now we are kind of just replacing these in kind with the same infrastructure that currently exists, with the hot and cold water already being piped to this location.
Okay.
Katie, do you think the extension that Tony's talking about would give you enough volume to handle the load, at least most of the time?
So I think it depends. I think for during the day, sure, and maybe on a regular overnight, sure. My concern is that if we're moving to a covered drop, which is I think the point here, because people do take stuff from it. Again, when we do have overflow, we have nowhere for the books to go. So I think if what I'm hearing is if what I'm hearing or seeing is what I'm thinking, I don't think this is ever going to be workable to be our only solution. And so I think we would have to move to maybe 2 large exterior book drops, and then having this for open hours, like having some sort of small bin for our open hours. So I think it might have to be a combo of the two things. And then I'll just have to try to see how that goes. And maybe, you know, maybe look down the road for something more permanent. But I think that's definitely more ideal than I just think we don't know what the volume's going to be, especially on our closed days.
What if you put a large bin to the left of the existing door, and it would be only for closed hours. So you would roll the bin in place, close the library, and then nobody's coming through that space anymore. So I'm sorry, to the right in this view, Tony. If you could rotate to your right a bit. So there's the window right now that has the trash cans or whatever those are outside it. But if you put a drop in that window, and things can come into the vestibule during your closed hours, that lets you fill the whole vestibule up. It's closed, so you don't have a security issue, and someone would have to come down there and clean that all out every morning or weekend.
I don't know. I think I like it. I think it solves a couple of the problems. I think that my concern would be that the books would then be blocking a staff entrance in the morning. But I'm pretty sure that this concrete pad where in this image, the trash bins are, Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that that's where the old exterior book drops were.
That's where I remember them.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were over
Yeah, that's usually why they're built. And
to the
this is
far
the
left.
thing.
Yeah.
I know it seems really small, but like the ability for people to return their items when we're not open is really fundamental to our work. So I think if this is the solution and exterior book drops are the solution, we can work with that. We just have to make sure that they're going to be adequate for what we need and come up with a doable solution for interior as well.
Christina, see what the door is showing right now on the right. Can we move the door to the window to the right and make that the entrance, the permanent entrance?
I believe that it's an energy code requirement to have a vestibule. So you're not supposed to go directly into the, conditioned space without having a vestibule for controlled air. That would be one of the reasons why I would say it might not be the best option. I understand what you're thinking, though, is that brings you directly in and allows this space to be dedicated to book drops, which is interesting.
It looks like that vestibule does have some level of climate control, just based on the
right.
corner.
Yep, it does. But like the idea of having two doorways to prevent all of your heat or cooling from exiting.
Can you spend a couple of hours on that without you get back to?
I think also an option maybe, and it may not be the cheapest option though, is if we agree that an exterior bin is acceptable, and once we have a contractor on board, even with the limited amount of civil work that we have here, we can have it priced out to have this retaining wall blown out and to be pushed back 8 feet and a new retaining wall poured with a patio there in which a new book drop would be done on the outside. So you would be subject at that time for overhead and profit with the contractor, but we would have some live pricing as to exactly what that would cost, and maybe we could offset that or compare it to what an exterior bin would be. I did a quick Google search on some large ones. I don't know if these are anything what the library would need, but roughly around $9,000 for a dual head that is on the exterior side. Could probably be a little bit more to customize it. But that's always an option too, that we go out and get pricing once we have a contractor on board, and it gives the design team to actually create some drawings that they can accommodate the schedule.
Just extending on Bill's idea, could we build a vestibule off of that middle archway? Just just big enough to get a wheelchair in, or whatever the minimum size is. So it would extend into what is now the sidewalk.
One more question. Where the words say new closet, can we make that the entrance? And then on the left is where the book drop is, where the word porch is.
I might not be following that one.
Take
Oh, the new
X-
closet line here.
X101, where the words, take the door at X01, move it to the side where nearest the words new closet,
Oh, here.
that
Okay.
window opening. And then once you come inside, you still got your vestibule, but the book drop goes where the words porch are. And we try to, like Brian said, we look outside to see if we can create some kind of a mechanism to fit inside of there. I also like his idea of it's whether it's an alternate or he comes back with a change order later on, we can price it up.
Yeah. So we've got, we spent a lot of time coming up with possible ideas here. Can I ask LPA, can you spend, like Bill said, a few hours sort of sketching out the different ideas, at least the ones that seem workable, and come back to us with your thoughts or recommendations? So I think just from what the discussion, it sounds like what we've got sketched out here now, what we've seen in the sketch is sort of the ideal solution, but also the hardest to implement at the moment. And then there's a couple of other quicker and dirtier solutions or potential solutions. So is that going to work? Will y'all be able to do sort of go back to the conceptual design phase for this particular add-on?
We can do that, Ed.
Okay. And then, as Brian was saying, if the cost isn't exorbitant, we can ask the contractor to price it out and maybe do a change order later on. Or if it's something quick and easy, we can try and cram it in there right off. Okay. Does that work for everybody? Kate, will that hopefully find something that fits your needs?
Yeah,
Hopefully.
I
No
really
guarantees
appreciate
yet,
it.
but okay. Anything else on the vestibule book drop question? Excuse me. Okay, let's move on to our additional updates in that case. One is, and I missed the last meeting, I may have missed some things, so if these have already been resolved, please tell me. One is meeting room technology. I believe there were some discussions about that. Kate, you were nodding. Can you fill us in on that?
Yes. Lynn and I were able to have a conversation with Westborough TV because we had asked for kind of an itemized list of all the technology going in that space, and kind of noticed that one of them was a computer, and that's something that we would have to upkeep. So long story short, we had a conversation with them and we were all on the same page about what our technology needs were for that room. And so we were able to kind of look at what we would, what was the dream to have and what did we actually need. And I believe we kind of came up with a plan that left us with a little bit of cost savings, if I'm correct, just in terms of scope of technology in that room, making sure that we had everything we needed for our programs and everything that they needed to be able to accommodate us when we wanted them to record our meetings or our programs. So I think we talked about eliminating the cameras. Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. The built-in cameras, the computer, the streaming computer, and all of the bells and whistles that came with that, and instead are kind of opting for some other ways to get in, and we wanted to make sure that we had audio output. So if they came in with a camera, they would be able to get clean, crisp audio from our presenters. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay. And has that gone back to LPA? Is that something that,
We did receive this information. I think that at this point, we've kind of decided that the infrastructure that we're providing already does serve the programmatic needs of the library. We're not changing that infrastructure. What really changes here is the technology budget. So instead of buying the computer and the cameras and stuff like that, we'll simplify that a bit to be just purchasing the owl, for example, and we can work with that technology list once we get a little bit further. But we're going to have to modify that technology portion, not really our drawings.
okay, great. Any other thoughts, questions, or comments on that? Okay. Now I come to one of the big ones, the temporary location search. Now, just to answer Bob's question from before, if my memory serves, we talked about temporary location several months ago, and the consensus at that time was that we could not be sure that the town would be able to accommodate us in the community center or anywhere else. And because of that, we needed to start the RFP process so that we would have options other than the community center. I don't think we've ever ruled out the community center because we can all recognize there'd be considerable cost savings if we could use it. Does that disagree with anybody's impression?
So you're correct. And I spoke with Al just prior to the meeting. He can't make it. So I will attend a meeting with him with a few members of the building committee in relationship to the new community center and see if something can be worked out. The biggest issue was timing of when the schedules were. The second issue was quietness, keeping it noise-free if possible. So a couple of short meetings, we'd like to explore that a little bit further. And the reason for that is we're not getting, and Shab can back this up, we're not getting input from any of the bidders when we've reached out to a couple apparently and have not heard back from them. So I think at this point, let Al and I explore that avenue. It does have all the pitfalls you talked about, but let's explore it a little bit further.
Okay. Yeah, I think I and Kate and maybe some other members have specifically been asked by, in my case, by, the moderator. I'm sorry, I think I may be getting
John Arnold.
No, not the moderator. The town manager.
Christie,
yes, whose name
Christy Williams.
Anyway, yes, Christie specifically was asking, are there ways we can do this on town property? And so that I get the feel that the town government would really like us to find a way. And if that's the case, I think it's sort of incumbent on town government to help us find that way. Sean, I see you went off mute.
Yeah, I think part of why she's asking that is I think for prior town projects, they have also looked for other, available town housing when they redid Forbes, when they redid Town Hall. They said now it's not the same thing, but they were essentially moved those folks around town to other locations to try and maintain a lower budget. So I think that's historical. There's a historical reference there.
Great.
Would you be looking on the first floor or the second floor? First floor. And
I honestly, I think we could consider
both.
either.
Or both.
I'll second the idea of considering both. When you think our current library has a small elevator and stairs to get to the main floor, having, if I recall correctly, the elevator in the community center is considerably bigger than that, and the stairs are bigger.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go outside.
Yeah.
And go around, but
just as a point of reference, there's 72 stairs going from the first floor. It's like 4 flights of stairs up to the current rec or community center where the swimming pool is. But would the rec department then be vacating? I mean, how would that work? they would be
There's
there.
extra room upstairs.
It would be shared.
Brian, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, just to give an update as well on the RFP process that we've gone through, and obviously, I think lowering the budget and using some of the town resources would be best, but if that can fit the programming and is the good fit. Knowing that we weren't getting a great response on pulling of the documentation on BidNet, and I think Shab jumped off, but we've been asking kind of on a weekly basis to get the list of people who have procured the RFP. We did use the contacts that we had. We did some searches on property owners and potential leasing options, and my office has talked to two, maybe three or four property owners who we've distributed the RFP to directly. So they may not be on the list of people that have pulled the documents, but they are in receipt of them, and we're hoping that they do provide us something. The deadline is on the 4th. So we're reaching out to them pretty much on a daily basis, making sure they don't have any questions, that they understand the process on how to have these submitted. And I think in parallel, we should be looking at all the options with town resources as well, so that, if in fact there isn't the RFP doesn't need to go with, we can let those potential bidders know that.
Yeah, I have a question. If it was on the first floor, which would be probably better, where would the entrance then be, over where the current, like the old Steinmart entrance is, or would the senior folks, the senior center be there already, or they, because it's being phased, would it wait a year until if we went in there?
They may not pass. They might be nothing on the first floor if town meeting doesn't approve the community center.
It's TBD. Potentially, if something does happen there, then the entrance may be through the back.
The back?
So through the back of that floor, but that's all sort of to be determined. And I think that is the conversation that needs to happen with the municipal building committee.
Okay. Would that cost to renovate that back entrance or to make it ADA and all that fall on the library?
You're jumping way ahead, and
Am I?
you're asking good questions, but we don't have answers for that.
I know, but I'm just trying to figure this out. Okay.
Let me ask a different question. Has anyone from the library or the project team taken a walkthrough of that building? You have, Kate?
Yeah, so I haven't taken a walkthrough of the first floor yet, but I did explore I think it's a loading dock entrance, because that was kind of what was originally said would be something. So and I also had a conversation with Christy where she said she was going to reach out to us and have us, maybe Brian or a couple of us, do a walkthrough. And I think it's a really good idea to do that and look at it and have these conversations. My only ask would be that I be included and Lynn or Lynn, one of us, as people who work in the library every day and know the internal operations that we need, that we just be part of those conversations when they happen. So, Bill, if you're meeting with people, can you just invite one of us so that we can just give that feedback?
No problem. I think you will be included. It may be just Al and 2 or 3 of us to see if it's feasible. And then I know a little bit about what you and Lynn do, but we will bring you in as soon as possible. Once I talk to Al, if he says, hey, bring him in right away, we'll do it right away. I think there's so much construction feasibility with the things that have just been brought up. Maybe it's just the team that is familiar with the construction of all the buildings for the town. We just explore that first. But let me talk to Al.
Yeah, just from my perspective, if we were to save $500,000 on rent, and that's just repeating, I guess, that's a fair amount of money for each of the individual people and each of the individual users. A lot of people would say, yeah, if I can save $20, I'll suffer through an extra elevator ride or slightly noisier library for a year.
It also eliminates what will be probable objection when you're looking for 2/3 vote.
Yes, absolutely. And it really, I think, helps the community center in addition, because they would be, we're sharing the costs, and they're helping the town and using the space maybe before they otherwise would, and so on. So
It's a downtown location.
yeah, it's
The
probably
other
the best
places are
location.
likely to be further away at this point.
Yep. Brian.
Yeah, and just I wanted to be clear too of what our schedule is and why we've put the RFP out now. With town meeting, it would be the intention that we're writing the specs such that the general contractor understands that there needs to be a window of getting the staff out of the current location. That may take up to a month, 6 weeks, as what we're calling almost a procurement period. And so we really need to work with the town management as to making sure our schedule works for them with any facility that we could do, and what our our anticipated construction would be, because you may be a tenant for 12 to 16 months based upon anything that happens with the construction.
Okay. I'm going to jump ahead again, I think. At some point, I believe we'll be hiring a library moving company to do the move. Do we have any of those in mind? Is that something we could reach out to and invite them to come on a walkthrough?
Not yet. So that would be something we'd work with Schwab as well. We
Okay.
would be doing an RFP process for that and having a walkthrough with potential movers. They have library movers on state bid list as well that would be coming to submit a proposal on this.
Okay, that's something I don't know the timing. I don't know the timing for that, but it's probably getting pretty close now. So, a question for whoever needs to: when do we need to have a decision on this? Sean, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, just a follow-up question there. Do we need to know the location we're moving to before we can actually hire the movers?
Yes.
I would say yes, Sean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think we can get them in and talk to them without hiring them. So,
Mhm.
So
the variable with that one, Sean, would be is if there is to be anything stored off site that can't be accommodated at a temporary location. So if we have an outfit that we award a lease to, but it cannot hold everything that needs to be stored for that year, they may need to be storing that off site at their own facility, which could cost more that way. So those are things that could affect the pricing.
So Brian, when does at some point we're going to need to choose either the town facility or a rental facility. Hopefully we'll have the option. What is that point? When do we? What's sort of
So ultimately, we cannot sign a lease with anybody until after an approval of town meeting.
Right.
So up until that point, we would not have anything signed or issued. I will say that we want to have that decision made as we go to town meeting as to we're ready to have this signed and move forward with whichever decision we've made. So I would think that while during our bidding period, we should be wrapping this up and having our decisions made at that point. So, beginning of the year, we have an understanding on what we're doing and what our intentions are.
Okay. So that's I'm going to take that as our deadline. Is by like January 7th. I'm going to pull that number out of my head. We want to have a decision on this. Is that
yes?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So Sean, we'd sort of de-emphasized looking for the town thing, and under the impression that we couldn't count on it. But now that the town is going active, I think we want to. We'd be more than happy to go that way if it's possible. That's my feeling, and I think the feeling of the committee.
I think we see when we get bids back and we evaluate all of them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Puts us.
Okay. Anything else on the temporary location search? The next thing is roof material. I know we've already voted to use the red synthetic slate, but Tony was going to present to the Historical Commission. I believe that's already happened. So Tony, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we presented to them last Wednesday night, and it went very well. They were very pleased with the work we've done thus far to preserve the front entrance and the accessibility waivers that we got, and they were also very receptive to the synthetic red slate. So they liked that. That first of all, it'll match the historic character and color of the library. They did like that there is a good balance in terms of cost savings with historical appearance, ease of repair, ease of installation, and they felt that I believe they voted unanimously in favor. And the chair said he would be happy to speak on behalf of the project and their decision at town meeting if we asked him to.
Great, Walter.
Yeah, so one of the things they liked was that the synthetic had the option to have the multicolor thing, so it isn't monotonic. They thought that would look better. They clearly favored the match color over the real versus synthetic, and that they appreciated the difference in cost for sure. Yeah, and to back up what Tony said, I think, they weren't in a position to support our project as a whole yet because we haven't presented our project, right? They voted in favor of this change. So I suggest that as part of our rollout, the presentation there, they would, they seemed very, very supportive of the project and the library as a general statement, but that they would probably would be willing to make a motion on the whole project once we have one to present.
So it sounds like maybe in February we should give them a presentation on the whole status of the whole project.
Yeah, we could prepare that. The other thing, the one question they did have, and something that this committee has weighed in previously, is the salvageability of the slate. They noted that it'll probably be a question before the committee at town meeting as to why the slate wasn't attempted to be salvaged. But we did explain that there was probably about a $50,000 premium involved with saving the slate. We've elected in our specifications to save a very small amount that maybe could be donated to their archives or things like that. But they did just want us to be aware that that'll be a question that citizens may ask about in terms of salvaging and selling the slate for offsetting costs.
That's something we would do as our site manager as well, would coordinate with the GC, trying to salvage whatever the request was. We could hold that in our office trailers.
I don't think when we were there, I don't think they insisted that it be salvaged. They went along with our, I think, cost saving plan that would cost we could save an extra $50,000 by not trying to salvage. And anyone that might salvage it, a company might come and take it and destroy it anyway. So, if people wanted pieces, they could take it. But other than that, we're not going to, it would even be much more costly, piece by piece to take it down versus using, just using the synthetic, just letting it go to a dumpster. I think they appreciated the fact that we are very cost conscious.
Just out of curiosity, would any of the dealers in slate we've been talking to be interested in buying it? If there's not much of a shortage of red slate, it might be worth something.
It's really hard to say just due to the quality. We see from the photos that some of them have sort of mold and moss and mildew. And when you get up close to some of them, especially when you're on that 1980 roof, looking back at the existing slate, there's a lot of hairline fractures. So there's really, those hairline fractures are just going to cause those things to shatter once you try to pry them off the roof. So there's really, there'll be a handful, like we said, that can be saved. There's a few, I think, in the boiler room of the library right now, but there's not going to be a significant amount that could be, sold at a bulk rate. I don't think any of these suppliers.
And Ed, if it was salvageable and able to be sold for a price that would probably be reflected in the roofer's cost in the filed sub bid. So you know,
Okay.
they would be looking to you know, get an advantage, and if they had a buyer for it, then the price would be reflected in it so that they could be the low bidder.
Okay. So it sounds to me like this decision is now made and done. We're using the synthetic red slate and nobody objects. Okay, good. We can drop that one off the list. How's our time going? 4:30. Okay. Construction parking. I am not up on this at this point. I know, Bob, you've been talking with St. Luke's about parking. Can you give us an update on that?
Sure, I sent an email out to everybody, but the good news is I was talking with Larry Orlando, the chief custodian and chief operations manager for the parish, and he had no problem at all with us using up to 20 spaces per day between like 9 and 4, 6 and 4. He said that he talked to the pastor, and the pastor was very willing to help, be a good neighbor, and have those spaces available for the workers and their pickup trucks and cars. He wasn't concerned about days of funerals. He was only concerned about holy days where people might jam up that parking lot. And he would get us a list of the holy days. I probably should know what they are, but I don't remember what all of them are. But most of them come during Lent. And I told him the project probably wouldn't be starting certainly till after annual meeting. Easter is early April next year. So probably after that, I said they wouldn't be using them until probably the beginning of May. So, and nothing was mentioned on costs. I don't think they were even thinking of charging us any money. He said there was no need for any paperwork or any contract. He just thought, no, keep it simple. But I think someone mentioned earlier that perhaps the construction contractors and subcontractors would probably have some type of insurance in case something happens in the parking lot. But that's good news for up to 20 vehicles a day for the life of the project.
That's great, Bob. And Ed and I had a meeting today to go over some of the Division 1 and the specifications about what's going to be going into the spec. And with that knowledge, I'm wondering if it's something that, Eric, we should put together and then possibly have the church take a look at it to make sure they're comfortable with it, about what is going to be put in the documentation on what's being offered. Possibly the holy days as well being spelled out as maybe you're on your own on those days, about, you know, that this would be off limits. But it's something that if it's open to be used, then that would be great that we can put in there so that they can reflect their price on that for their logistics standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to share that with back to the parish. I think they're being neighborly. It's a good way for us to be a good neighbor back to them, to show them exactly what we're going to be asking of our contractors. So I think that makes sense.
I think the way we would phrase it, Brian, is that it would be in a very informal way, that you know, that there's no guarantee that this parking will be available. We can say that the owner has had discussions and the church is agreeable to a certain number of cars per day, but there's no written, you know, formal legal agreement that binds them to providing that. Because the concern we have is that if, say, the church changes their mind, and we've written into the spec that, you know, you own 20 spaces a day, the GC could come back and make a claim against you as the owner because you haven't provided those spaces, and they've lost the ability to park, you know, relatively close to the site, and they counted on that, and yada yada yada, you know, lots of reasons. So I think the way we would propose to do that would be to make it a kind of a informal statement that it doesn't bind you as to providing any number of spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Understood.
I even asked him about snow days too, in case, you know, how early does he get there to plow out and shovel off the sidewalk going down Ruggles Street to West Main, and he said he's there early for the parishioners anyway. So I thought that might be a problem, that that might be not plowed until later, but he said, no, it's plowed early.
Oh, I think that's great, Bob. I mean, that's great work that you did to find that nugget there. Yeah, that's going to help a lot. But while we're on the on the subject of parking, Brian, should we bring up the way we propose to approach
Yes.
the adjacent church parking lot? We have written into our specs that the contractor has no ability to use that under no circumstances. Do they have permission to use that space either for parking or for bringing in a crane or materials or anything like that? Now, that's kind of a worst case scenario, but and it may very well be that they could make an agreement with the church to either on a lease basis or some other kind of agreement. But the way we would approach it would be is we tell the contractor you have no rights to that parking area.
So to confirm this, we are not agreeing to set up any rights, but they are at liberty to negotiate directly with the church and possibly get themselves access.
Is that a done deal, Sean, that we can't have the town make a new agreement?
I'm sorry, Ed, what was your point again? I missed part of what you said.
What I said is that in terms of the contract with the general contractor, we are telling the general contractor that we're not granting them that they don't have access to the church, but they can, if they wish, go to the church themselves and try to negotiate an access agreement.
In the absence of an agreement, Ed, that would be our approach. But
Right.
we don't have any knowledge of a new agreement.
And we have to get our contracts out in the next pretty darn soon. So
I'm sorry, are we talking about the cement truck specifically, or are we talking about any vehicles whatsoever?
any vehicles at this point, any use at all, as I understand what Eric has said.
Got it. I mean, I think there's still an opportunity for us to get something completed with the Congregational Church next door. I think they want to make it happen. I guess the question is, we do not want to completely take over their parking lot. So I would say it's still outstanding, but we need to make something happen probably within the next month. I mean, the Congregational Church is motivated.
Mhm.
Both parties are motivated to get something to happen. So nothing's happened yet, but so as of right now, you're correct, but I think something can still happen.
Okay. Eric, what's your drop dead date? Or Eric or Brian, whoever, what's your drop dead
So
date for
we have to issue the documents basically in 2 months. We have I had the schedule open earlier, but we have about 2 months to get the documents together, and that's finalized everything. I mean, we don't have 2 months to know whether whether there'll be an agreement with the church or not. So I would say if we found out in the next month, is that possible to know whether that?
So, okay, so it sounds to me like we should try and get something signed in place, or at least handshake agreement by Thanksgiving, and then we can get it written after that.
The other thing I would say, Ed, you asked is it possible for the GC to make an agreement with the church? That happens all the time.
Yeah.
That's not at all uncommon. They'll be looking for places to park. They'll make whatever deals they need to make. We don't need to be part of those deals.
Mm-hmm.
That's on their own. So.
And I would say too, Eric, with the review that we did of the Division 1 spec, it's pretty robust in the requirements that the GC is going to need to give us for logistics and kind of a plan around that area, which, if in that time there is some sort of an agreement, brokered, that we'd be able to kind of introduce it at that time, once the contract is signed.
So let me suggest that we talk to the church about allowing the contractors to park, I'll say light vehicles, pickup trucks, their personal cars, things like that, but not construction cranes, not cement mixers, on the library side of the church property. And that is essentially the use we're asking for in terms of, during working hours, I should say also. That's essentially the use we're asking for in terms of just routine use by library patrons. So I don't think there will be a problem there. And then if the contractor wants to use that space for cement mixers or lifts or whatever, they can talk to the church directly. Does that seem like a reasonable approach to you?
Yes.
Okay, I will reach out to Christy with that summary and see what she says. Okay, and we'll try and get a handshake agreement by Thanksgiving, if not a signed agreement. John, does that work for you? Okay, you're on.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, if we get both of the churches allowing parking, that should cover an awful lot of stuff for us. So that'll get pretty close to that 50 employees we talked about earlier. Okay, Kate, have you had any further discussions with the church? Any news from that end? Nothing?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I talked to Christy a little bit in my meeting I had with her. Try to figure out where we're at with negotiations, but I haven't heard much.
Okay, great. Anything else on parking? The next one is the HVAC coolant. Pete, is there anything new on that? And do I need to leave it as an item?
I was wondering if somebody had an update on that. I thought our discussion at the last meeting concluded that the RFP is going out as previously stated, and it accommodates feedback with both coolants, the kind of the existing legacy as well as the newer ones, and we'll review them when they come in. Can somebody more succinctly state where we are in this? I think we're going out to bid and we're going to get the results and we're going to evaluate it, but we'll learn. I think there's some encouragement of the contractors to use the new technology, but if it's not available or it's more expensive, they'll state so in their bid response. Is that the correct understanding?
I'm sorry. That is pretty accurate there, Pete. The spec will be based on what the code requirement is at that time. So manufacturers are only going to be able to provide what is available for them to provide at the time of bidding. But the intent is to use the newest refrigerant possible. Siemens Engineering has already made a couple of adaptations to that. As far as some power requirements and some piping sizes. So they're already accommodating what that new refrigerant is going to require. So the systems can be adaptable.
I think there was some investigation of the supply chain to understand if the new refrigerant systems were going to be available at the time, but the bid process was going to bring that information to the table.
That's right, Pete. My recollection is that Kevin had looked into it with some of the manufacturers, and not all the manufacturers were making that that newer refrigerant available just yet. They were in the process of transitioning to newer equipment that can use that refrigerant, and it was somewhat in flux now. So I don't think we have a real update for you there, other than to say that, as we get closer to the date that we're actually putting the drawings out for bid, we will include, as to the extent possible, a requirement that they use the newer refrigerant.
So, Ed, to your specific question, I don't think we need to review this every meeting,
Okay.
unless there's new information coming up.
Okay, I'll leave it on the list and just ask if there's anything new, and if the answer is no, then we have a very short item. Okay, the lighting system. I know there's been considerable discussion of digital wireless lighting system. Any updates on that? And is there any decision?
I'm trying to get myself off mute here, but yes. So we're just confirming. I think the outstanding question was whether or not there is a subscription service for the wireless lighting component, and ART has confirmed that there is no subscription service required. So it's a one-time upfront cost when they install the system, which would be included in the bid. And then once they have everything up and running, it runs on its own internal network. So it does not seek to go outside of the building to operate. So it'll be a very secure system. And again, no subscription required or no additional operational cost for the library after it's been installed and commissioned.
Okay. So does anyone have any other thoughts about using a lighting system? Using the proposed system? Anyone against the idea? I don't think we need a vote for this. We didn't specify one lighting system or the other early on, but I think the sense of the meeting, we should go ahead and use the wireless system. Is that correct? Does anyone feel a vote is needed for that? Okay, I guess we're going with the wireless system. That'll be fun I'll be interested to see how that works once it's in there. And last, is there any updates or anything we need to know about the mass save energy analysis?
I have reached out on that in terms of next steps for them. My understanding is that their next analysis of our drawings will take place at 100% CDs. But I did ask if they'd like to receive a copy of our 75% cost estimate set to see if that would be helpful to them. So I'll give an update next time we meet on what they come back to us with.
Great. Okay. Any other building related issues or outreach issues? Hearing none. Okay, I have one, which is that I'm working with Janine and the trustees to do some general outreach, and we'll be talking to not the Willows, but the other large elder care facility in town, to giving a few talks there, a talk or two there in December. Okay. I think for our next meeting, we need to spend some serious time on outreach, really make a plan and get back out to the community, because we are going to be asking for, I believe, $13.6 million in March, and we'll want to support that. Okay, I don't see Mary Johnson here. Can we survive leaving the minutes until the next meeting?
It's good to post your minutes. Yeah, we should get them up there. They're quite old.
Case, yeah, they are quite long. Okay.
So we should, unless there's some objection to one of them, I don't.
No, I went through them and found a couple of minor typos, but they're very much accurate transcripts of what we said. So
I move to accept all posted meeting notes that Mary has supplied. They were excellent.
That's from September 10th, 17th, 24th, and also from October 10th. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? I guess I'll have to go through the list. Lynn?
Yes. Sukup, yes.
Okay, Pete?
Dunbeck, yes.
Kate?
Braccio, yes.
Bob?
Petroselli, yes.
Walter?
Leslie, yes.
Sean?
EO, yes.
Let's see, Bill, are you still on?
Lenane, yes.
Any other building committee members that I've missed? And I am a yes. Okay, so the minutes are approved, accepted unanimously. Next meeting date. I'll ask LPA and Vertex, do we need a meeting sooner than I think we should probably go the week before Thanksgiving. Maybe the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, rather than waiting until after the Thanksgiving holiday.
That will be post reconciliation, right, Christina?
Our reconciliation's on the 15th.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and Thanksgiving is, I'm just looking.
28th.
28th.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it made the 19th.
Yeah, so if we have our meeting on the Tuesday, October 22nd, I think that's actually the regular scheduled time anyway.
November
That's
19th.
November 19th.
November 19th.
November, oh, I'm looking at October, that's not very useful. Okay, November 19th. Okay, so LPA and Vertex, do you expect to need anything before that time?
that should be good for me.
Okay,
I think that we'll probably have to communicate via email on the book drop solutions, if that's all right with you.
okay. Yep, let's go back and forth on that. If need be, I would say reach out to Kate and have direct conversations on that until we come up with one or a couple of solutions, and then we can bring them back to the LBC and
Perfect.
approve them or not, as the case may be. Okay.
Okay.
So our next meeting will be Tuesday, November 19th at 3:30 p.m. on Zoom, and then we'll send out an agenda, I'm sure. Is there any other issues, questions, or anything for the meeting? In that
Move to
case, I'll
adjourn.
take okay, I heard a motion from, was that Pete?
Yep.
Okay,
Second.
and I need a second.
Second.
Okay, so I'm not sure who that was, but I'll go through the list. Lynn,
Sukup, yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Kate,
Caraccio, yes.
Bob,
Yes, Bob Petroselli.
Walter,
Leslie, yes.
Sean,
EO, yes.
Bill,
Lenane, yes.
and myself is a yes. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you again very much for your time.
Thanks,
And,
everyone.
We'll see you in about, I think that's about 3 weeks.
Thanks, Ed.